Hi and welcome back to the second video in the series of making use of a Synology NAS. Now in this second part we're going to be doing the initial configuration of Home Assistant, in which we will configure the basic settings. So if you want to know how to do that, keep watching this video to find out how. If you haven't seen the first video in the series, I'll put a link in the description below so you can watch that video prior to watching this one. So the first thing we need to do is to open up our internet browser, whichever one you're using, and in the address bar you need to type in http://homeassistant.local, and then a colon. You must enter the colon and then 8123. So you should be typing in http://homeassistant.local:8123. As I said, you must type in :8123 as that is the port number that Home Assistant runs its web interface on, and if you don't type that in, it's unlikely that you'll be able to load your Home Assistant login page. So once you've done that, press enter and you should be presented with the Home Assistant creating a user account page. If this page doesn't load, then I suggest you go back and watch my first video in the series, as you may need to restart your virtual machine running on your Synology NAS so that it restarts Home Assistant if it's not already running. But as mine is already running, hence why I've been presented with the Home Assistant creating a user account page. First thing we need to do in the name box is type in your name. In this case I'm typing in administrator, which as you can see has just automatically typed in my username as administrator, all in lowercase letters. So in Home Assistant, as far as I'm aware, you need to be using all lowercase letters for usernames, so just bear that in mind. Then in the password box I'm going to create a password, and then in the confirm password box I'm going to retype the password. Then once you've done that, you can select create account. This then should bring up the following box saying Home Assistant, hello administrator, or whichever username you've created. Welcome to Home Assistant. How would you like to name your home? Now in the box it's already put in under name of your Home Assistant installation, it's typed in home automatically. So I'm going to leave that as default. And then it's saying we will set up the basics together. You can always change this later in the settings. So once we've done that and we're happy with the name, we'll click next. Now it's asking me to set up the location. So it's saying let's set up the location. Let me just make the screen a bit bigger for you, so hopefully you'll be able to see it a bit better. So it's saying let's set up the location of your home so that you can easily display information such as the local weather and use sun-based or presence-based automations. This data is never shared outside of your network. So in the search address box I'm going to be typing in my UK postcode, and then at the end of that bar, the right hand side, I'm going to be clicking the little icon which looks like a book and a magnifying glass. So once you have been presented with the search results, you can also click on the map and you'll see where the blue marker is located, and you can actually zoom in on the map using your mouse scroll wheel, and you can also tailor it so that you can move the blue marker to exactly the position of where your home is located. So then once I've done that, I'm clicking next. Then it's presented me with some further information saying we filled out some details about your location. Please check if they are correct and continue. So in the country, it has United Kingdom, which is correct. The language is English for Great Britain, and that is correct. And also the time zone is GMT for London, and that is correct. And the elevation, it's asking me to put in the elevation. So for the elevation, what we can do to find the elevation is open up a new tab. If you open up a web page called mapdevelopers.com, you can type in your address on screen. As you can see, I have done at the moment. It's provided me with the results of my elevation, which is currently 8.9 meters or 29.1 feet. So once you have done that, you can close that web page. So now that you have found your results of your elevation, we can type that in Home Assistant. So in my case, as it's 8.9 meters, I'm going to be rounding it up to 9 meters. I'm going to be typing 9 for 9 meters. Now that I've done that and all the boxes have been correctly allocated and the information is entered is correct, we will click next. Then on the next box that appears, you will see share anonymized information from your installation to help make Home Assistant better and help us convince manufacturers to add local control and privacy focused features. So at the moment, by default, basic analytics, usage, statistical data and diagnostics are all disabled. So at the moment, I'll leave those all as disabled and click next. Now the next window that appears, you will see that it's saying devices and services are represented in Home Assistant as integrations. You can set them up now or do it later from the configuration screen. Now in this video, we will be setting them up at a later date from the configuration screen. At the moment, you will see there's devices which it's already found on my network, but we'll set all these devices up later. And last but not least is the Unify Protect on my UDM Pro. If we click more, you will see that you can then set up a new integration, but we will be doing these integrations later in the next video. So now that we've done that, we will click finish, and then now that we've entered all that information, we are now presented with the Home Assistant overview page, which is showing the administrator as the account that's logged in, also text to speech service for google.com, and also the weather forecast as well. The weather forecast seems to be slightly out at the moment because it is actually sunny here, but rain is forecast later, so I presume that's why it's showing as rainy at the moment. So now that we've finished configuring it, we'll go through the basic options in Home Assistant to see if we can tailor it a bit better, and then in the next video we'll look at integrations. So we're already in the overview tab. Now we can actually click on these tabs that are appearing in the overview screen, and it will bring up a box with more information saying the administrator was last updated and changed 15 minutes ago. And if we click on the history tab, which looks like a little graph here, you will see that is providing a logbook of entries, and we can click show more. Then it provides the history in Home Assistant and a graph bar saying when the person was logged in, for example. So let's go back to the overview screen, and for the administrator pop-up history window we'll click the arrow left, then we'll click the X, then we will click on the settings, which is the gear or cog icon. Here you can enter the name, which is entered already as administrator. You can select an icon, which it already has by default, and the entity ID is person.administrator. I would leave that as it is at the moment. And then for the area, you can select an area. Obviously, if you're logging in from different locations, your area would need to be left blank, because I think it would actually say you're in a specific area when you were probably in a different area. So for voice assistant, we can configure aliases and expose settings for voice assistant. So let's click on that. Here you can see we have voice assistants, and at the moment the expose is disabled. So we'll leave that as it is at the moment. Then under the next option for enabled, this means the user account is enabled. Visible means if you disable this option, it will mean that hidden entries will not be shown on your dashboard or included when indirectly referenced. The history is still tracked and you can still interact with them with services. So let's just leave that as it is at the moment. Then we'll close that pop-up box with the X button. Then we have text to speech, so let's click on that. And here you can see the history for text to speech. We can also click on the settings or the cog or the gear icon. And here you will see that we have the same options for this tab as well, enabled, visible and voice assistant. We'll leave those all as they are at the moment and click back and X. Then for the weather forecast, we can click on that, which will then provide you with a further breakdown of your weather forecast for your location. We can then click on the history tab, and again it has the logbook where it logs interactions and entries for that weather forecast. We can also click on the gear icon and we can change various options for the forecast display. For example, we can have the precipitation units in inches or millimeters, so I'll change it to millimeters. The barometric pressure, I'll change it to mbar, meaning millibars. The temperature unit will have a Celsius, the visibility unit in miles, and the wind speed unit in miles per hour. Then you can see we have other options for voice assistant, enabled, visible and use device area. So we'll click update to update those settings we've just changed. Then if we click on the forecast home button again, you will see that some of the settings have now updated. So for example, the air pressure is 1009.9 millibars, humidity, and the wind speed is miles per hour. And also the temperature is recorded in Celsius. I think it was Celsius before anyway, so we'll click X on there. So the next option down in the left hand side Home Assistant menu is for energy. So let's select that and take a look. Here you can configure the amount of energy that you consume from the grid, and if you produce energy, give it back to the grid. This allows Home Assistant to track your whole home energy usage. And then we can also select the return to grid if, for example, you have solar panels and you're selling back your unused energy back to the grid. You can add details in there, and also you can add your grid carbon footprint if you know what that is from an integration device which you may have in your home which records that. Moving down to the next option, we have media. Here you can select media to be played back through your PC or your home media center on your network. Then we'll select radio browser. Here you'll be presented with a list of countries and their corresponding flags, and you should be able to select the flag, for example United Kingdom here. Then it's providing me with a list of all radio stations which can be played back through Home Assistant. or I guess as well stream to any of your smart devices which are shown in your Home Assistant setup. For example, let's select 24/7 Disco, and here you'll see it's playing some music from a radio station. Let's stop that for the time being due to copyright issues. Then we'll go down to Developer Tools, and here there's various developer tools which we won't go into in this video because of timing. It make the video far too long and be far too complex as well for what stage we're at the moment. So we'll go down to Settings, and then in Settings you will see it provides you with details of various options and settings. So the first one we have is for one update for Home Assistant Core. So here we'll click on this, and it's now presenting me with a pop-up box asking me to install the Home Assistant Core update. So at the moment we have the Create Backup Before Updating box ticked. At this stage I'm going to untick this because I haven't really set up anything in Home Assistant apart from entering and setting up my user account and location settings. So here in this window it also shows you the installed version being 2023.8.1, and the latest version is 2023.8.2, and this is the updated version which it will be updating to. So we'll click install and just wait for it to install the update for Home Assistant so that it brings it to version 2023.8.2. So now that it's installed the update, we're taken back to the Home Assistant login page. So here I'll type in my username, which is what I created as administrator, and also type in the password. So then click login. So if we go back to settings, you will see now that the Home Assistant update box, which appeared at the top of this screen here, has now disappeared. So let's check to make sure that it's actually updated the Home Assistant. So on this menu box here, you'll see About at the bottom. So if we click on that, you will see now that it's saying the Home Assistant version is 2023.8.2, which confirms that it's now updated to version 8.2 instead of 8.1, which we were previously on. So let's go back to settings, and here you'll see that the first option is for Home Assistant Cloud. If you click on this, it will ask for more information, saying Home Assistant Cloud provides you with a secure remote connection to your instance while away from home. It also allows you to connect with cloud-only services such as Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. So as I'm not going to be using the cloud Home Assistant and I don't wish to connect to it remotely at the moment, we'll click back. So then the next option is for devices and services. Here we have integrations, devices, entities and helpers. So if we click on that, it brings you with a list of devices that it's actually found already on your network under discovered here, and also under configured, it's also configured the default services itself for weather forecast, the radio browser, also part of the weather forecast there, and the Home Assistant supervisor, and also Google Translate text to speech. Also at the top we can select devices. We are currently in integrations. If we select devices, it will provide you with a list of devices which have been set up in Home Assistant already, and these are automatically created ones which Home Assistant created when it set itself up. We can then select entities. Here you will see various entities in there, and these are what have been automatically set up during our initial configuration of Home Assistant. We can also select helpers. At the moment there's no helpers in there, We'll go into that in a further video. So if we go back to the settings main screen, we can select automations and scenes, where you would set up automations. For example, if you wanted a light to turn on and off at certain times of the day, you would create it here in automations using the create automation button at the bottom right corner here. So we'll then go back to the main settings. Here you can enter areas and zones. For example, you can enter rooms in your house, and here it's already created by default a bedroom, a kitchen and a living room. So what I'm going to do in this is create some more areas ready for when we want to set up integrations and also add devices into various rooms. So let's create an area, and here we will call it entrance hall. And click create. Here you will now see we have bedroom, entrance hall, the one we created, kitchen and living room. I'm also going to add one more area, so click on the create area button, and also we'll call this one bathroom. So we'll add bathroom in and click create. You can actually click on the rooms, and here you can add a picture of the actual room as well if you wish. At the moment I don't have any, so I'll click cancel and then click close with the X button on that, and then go back with the back arrow to the list of rooms, and then we'll click the back arrow. We can also apply add-ons. These run extra applications next to Home Assistant. We'll leave that as it is at the moment. And then the dashboards, we can click there, and we can also customize the dashboard, which is the overview screen here, and this is the dashboard, so you can customize it with various tiles. For example, you can add rooms and things and certain devices and integrations on your home screen there. So let's go back to settings. People, we can manage who can access your home. So at the moment we've only got one person added, and that's the administrator, and that will be able to control everything in Home Assistant. And go back to settings. Then under system, here we can create backups, check logs or reboot your system. So let's click on that. Then we're presented with a second menu, options, first one being general. Here you can rename your home, you can select a new time zone, the elevation and change various settings for your currency. Then we can select and then backups. So here in the backup screen you can actually scroll down if you need to and create a backup. So let's go through just creating a backup, and the backup name we'll call this is backup after initial setup, and we'll select full backup as it will be a full backup, and also you can select password protection if you want to protect your backup files with a password. I'll click create without a password. This then has created a backup, and as you will see if you scroll up the list you will see that there's now a backup after initial setup file which has been created. So let's click back, and for backups I would recommend that you perform a backup after you do anything major on the system. For example, if you add further devices or an integration, then I would do a backup just before and just after, just so that you can restore back to it if any problems arise. So we'll go back, and then if we click about, you will see that it's presented us with Home Assistant, the version, the supervisor version, the operating system version, and also the front end version. And also there's various options that you can select for the license, help, change log, bug reports, feature requests, merchandise and so on. So let's go back to the overview, and that configures setting up Home Assistant for initial use. In another video, hopefully coming up in the next one, we'll be going into detail further. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this second part of the Home Assistant video useful. Please do keep a lookout for further videos coming soon, and don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons, and also hit the bell notification so that you get notifications automatically when I release further videos. I'd also, before I go, I'd like to shout out to this user coming up on screen at the moment that's just recently taken up one of my channel memberships. If you want your name to also appear at the end of videos, then why not take a look at the membership options. If you select level 2, you'll get your name appear on some or all of my further videos I release. Thanks for watching, take care, bye for now.